Hey y'all, welcome to Shades of Brown, the podcast that discusses the ever-evolving and sometimes contradicting thoughts of a Black millennial. I'm your host, AlyB, and thank you for being here with me. If you enjoyed this week's episode, please be sure to leave a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. Of course, that's if you listen on Apple. This week, I'm so honored to have my dear friend, Alyssha Garfield, as my guest. The last time she was on the show, she was Alyssha Dairsow. However, sis has had a name change since then. Okay, congratulations, girl.
Thank you.
She is the founder of Curly Me, a nonprofit organization that aims to educate, uplift, and empower young girls of color in the state of Utah. And she is quite literally a world changer. And I'm just so excited to have her back with us. How are you doing, girl?
I'm all right today. I'm all right today. Had me a good little nap before we got on this thing here, so I'm ready to go. How are you?
Yes, I'm doing well. As you know, I've been wanting to have this conversation literally since I started this podcast. And I'm like, I don't know why it's taking me so long. I'm ready to talk about it. So we're going to discuss purity culture and the damaging effects it can have on Christian women. By definition, purity culture is a subculture of evangelical Christianity that peaked in the 90s, with young girls pledging to abstain from sex until marriage, dress modestly, and ultimately devote their entire lives to God. On the surface, that doesn't sound so bad, but it has totally jacked us up.
Jacked!
So let's unpack it. You ready, girl?
No! Oh, gosh. Theme song, like a song before her, Nuck If You Buck, or like some type of 2000s rap song that describes the feeling.
Well, now that you're married, girl, your theme song should be taking over for the 99 2000s. Like that.
Listen, that is always, it is always a thing. Okay.
All right. So, Leash, share with us a bit about your background and your upbringing in regards to your faith and, being a good girl.
Oh, yes. I was one of the best. No, just playing.
No, tell us. Go ahead.
I was one of the best. No. So I grew up in church. Like, I'm not going to say most of your listeners, but I grew up in church. I went to a couple of churches growing up. Baptist and another evangelical. And then once I got older, it became more non-denominational. But my developmental years prior to going to a more non-denominational church was in the Baptist church. And so stockings, long dresses. I'll never forget my mom used to wear denim dresses to work.
Mm-hmm.
Slips.
Mm-hmm.
Full body slips.
It's hot.
Yeah, I couldn't wear shorts above my knee because that's being fast.
Mm-hmm.
And having any type of shoulders out. I mean, like a tank top,
girl,
it's fine, but a cami. Oh, when Aeropostale came out with those those polos and we could double them up, I think that was probably one of my mom and dad's favorite times because you wasn't worried about because you buttoned them as well, and you had a cami underneath. Always wore a belt. Skirts couldn't be a shirt. I remember in elementary school being so happy. My mom bought me a suit, blazer,
elementary
with
school
shoulder pads. I'm talking 8th grade. I've had to be 6th, 7th, and I wore it with pride.
Girl.
I'll tell you, I had the pumps, stocking, skirt below the knee, and this here. This is what I got for
grandma.
Christmas. Looking like...
Girl, looking back at pictures of my childhood, I'm like, oh, po baby. I mean, straight up full on suits. And not even kid suits. Like for me, it's like straight up from the women's department of Dillard's.
Mrs. I don't know where my mom... Value City, maybe? I don't know. Right, but it was in the Mrs. department.
From the petite section, because I was in middle school.
Right. Middle school age.
Ridiculous.
Wild.
Oh man. But, you saying the shoulders thing, man, that just triggered me because just recently, as recent as Easter Sunday, which was April, a few weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
I went to my church in Memphis and I wore a dress where my shoulders were exposed. You know, what are those called? Like the cold shoulder dresses, like off the shoulder, right? And literally like my cleavage was covered, you know, the cleavage line wasn't showing, nothing. It was just all of my shoulders were out. And I literally had to have a pep talk, like, girl, you are fully covered, like fully. The dress comes like right just about to your knee, you know, a little bit, just a tinge of thigh, but like you're fully covered. Like your arms are covered, like your boobs are covered. Like, girl, you're covered. It's just your shoulders, bro. Like they're shoulders. And I had to literally give myself permission as a 31-year-old, give myself permission to wear a cold shoulder dress to church. And still felt, even when I wore it, still felt uncomfortable. Like, I'm like, bro, this is wild. Like, their shoulders. But I was trained that, like, you don't want to be a distraction to men because they can be turned on, you know, by shoulders and arms. Pretty much out any type of skin. We can't distract the men. Even though these same men being the pulpit with they doggone prints showing and these tight pants on. Okay, we can see everything.
Too many times. These fitted shirts under their suit jackets. But we ain't gonna talk about that. Right. Anywho.
We can see them and view them, right? And not be distracted. We can be like, okay, he looks nice, or oh wow, his butt is not really nice, or wow, his whole penis print is showing, but that not distract us from whatever God is doing in the moment. But yet
so that's assuming
we got also covered.
That we don't have, and I know we're going to talk about this, but we don't have that sexual desire for these men at an early age.
So speaking of, what was your understanding of sexuality and sensuality? Like, was that something that you were educated on or what?
No. My dad, so picture this. My parents are older. Well, they had me when they were in their 30s. And so very traditional. My mom was sitting here wearing long skirts, okay? So I don't have many memories of my parents like being intimate together that I could recall. I do recall some things, but at a certain age, it just kind of stopped. And then my mom never talked to me about sex, never really talked to me about her relationships with men unless I tried to ask. So all of my information was coming from like my mother or from my father, and then women from within the church. I had really good mentors, but they still upheld like purity culture. But my dad, sex was sin, okay? Sex was sin, period. Period. That was it. My dad, of course, meant well, right? But sex was sin. Sensuality probably wasn't even a part of his vocabulary. Not to say that he didn't know what it was, but that's not something he's talking to me about. And I, to this day, still enjoy, like my dad is one of my best friends. I still enjoy talking to my dad, but I do realize that there's this generational difference. There's this understanding difference. But at the time when I was a kid, you listen to everything your parents say. Like they really don't tell you wrong. I was very like straight to the point. They're not direct so much back then, but I listened to my parents because I didn't want to get in trouble. I didn't want to get caught up. So I was very much, I don't want anything bad to happen to me. So I'll listen to what my parents say type of girl.
The rule follower.
And I was a rule follower. And the problem was when they talked about sex, they backed it up with examples. That's the problem. It's just like when you say you shouldn't have sex because look at such and such. I had too many cousins that were the examples of why you shouldn't have sex. So I was like, well, I don't need that type of baggage at 15. Yeah. And then you had in school, you had those examples of girls being sexually active, and then the response after a guy broke up with them, I was just like, that is too much. So I do believe, I will say that some of what I was taught was a protection measure for sure. Mm-hmm. Like, because it didn't seem like the boys were though we were in the same room at times when it came to like small groups in church or youth groups in church, we weren't getting the same information. So when we go back to the definition of purity culture, you had mentioned specifically female. I remember being in the same room, but it didn't seem like we were looking back on it now, we weren't getting the same understanding or being held to the same standard.
Right. That part.
Within the church. Yeah.
That part. Yeah, same for me, girl. Sex was the ultimate sin. And we girls were certainly held to a different standard than the men. Because like you said, we're getting the same teaching, but it's hitting differently because there was the expectation that, quote unquote, boys will be boys. The implication was because boys will be boys, we, the young girl, have to be responsible for his actions. So make sure we don't do anything that would make him, do whatever boys do, right? So you cover up, you don't be fast, whatever the freak that means. You know what I'm saying? Like all the pressure was placed upon the girl because boys are just out of control. Men are just out of control. They have no self-control. Forget about the fruit of the spirit, okay? Forget about cultivating self-control within yourself. So we'll be responsible for their control, and we will do all we can to make sure that they don't desire us in any other way than seeing us as sister and missionary and evangelist or the choir member or whatever. You were talking about how, it was more of a protective measure as well, that your parents were encouraging you, to not do these things. So you're implying that, so I know this, but I want you to clarify so that our listeners understand you were a virgin until marriage.
The night we got engaged, I was just like, let's just try something. It didn't work out. Didn't know what the heck I was doing. We'll say kind of. Because, I'll say high school, my senior year in high school, I started having questions, started wanting trying things, but would still feel conviction.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can't keep doing this. Like, to the point where I'd be like, we probably can't be together. And that kind of like followed me. 6 months was like the longest relationship I believe I had until my late 20s, 6 months, because I'm like, now we would call it like situationships now, kind of like a situationship, but dating. Yeah. Once I got into like my mid 20s, that's what we started to kind of like move into. But I don't think, looking back on that, even going back to the point of my dad telling me about sex is sin, you shouldn't do it, this, that, and the third, he, in almost the same breath or almost the same car ride, because we had a lot of our conversations in the truck driving places, he would say to young men, you need to put something on, meaning you need a condom. And I'm just like, what? Well, if we're not supposed to be having sex, why are you telling him to put a condom on?
Okay, so
and as a kid, I didn't think about that, but now as an adult, because he's very repetitive. I can kind of tell you what my dad is going to say about something, and so that in particular just sounded really interesting when I look back on it, and like, you telling me not to do something, but you telling him to wrap it up. If you're gonna do it, wear a rubber. He's a product of the 60s, so we're gonna say rubber, not condom.
So you give the men practical advice, like you shouldn't do this, but since I know you are, here's what you should do. But for the women, for the girls, is just don't do it. So what ends up happening is you got a whole bunch of girls who feel what you said, conviction, but let's just call it what it is, who feel condemned because they are in shame, because, we are exploring, we're figuring things out, and we don't have the proper tools to explore, right? Because truth is, regardless of what we feel about premarital sex, on last week's episode, we were told that fornication is not premarital sex, and we were taught that, premarital sex is not a sin. I'm still marinating on that, but wherever you land, regardless of all of that, regardless if you believe it's a sin or not, the truth is majority of folks have premarital sex, right? Christian or not, believer or not, wherever you stand, wherever you end up in that argument, 9 times out of 10, you doing it. So,
or have done it.
And for Christian women, we end up in sometimes dangerous situations because we have not been educated properly. All we have been told is to abstain, to avoid. And that is just not practical. It's just not practical, because what happens when we get in situations, now we ain't got nowhere to go. No, we don't know who to go to. Like, girl, I'm not going to even get into this ain't about me, this about you. So let me let me rear myself back in, because I don't know, it's just, these are our lived experiences, and purity culture has had such extreme impacts on us both, and it's just it's so annoying. So you, I'm assuming you saw your chastity and your virginity as, well, let me ask you, did you see your chastity and your virginity as a measurement of righteousness?
Oh yeah.
Was it your primary measurement of righteousness?
I would say it was high up there if we had like top 3, right?
Yeah.
Especially in high school, that's when you start to like see things for what they are. You start hearing things in the hallways. You start knowing that this person is that and this and the third. So I know I wasn't doing it. So I'm like, y'all shouldn't be doing it either. And that was like, and you couldn't tell me. I'm holding you accountable. Like, we say we are believers. We say we love God.
We say we are fruit inspectors.
We listen.
All
and
code
we supposed to,
for just being judgy.
Yeah, what you said, being judgy. Definitely the judgmental friend. But in my eyes, high school Alyssha, this was me saying, hey, I thought we said we were this. Because just like you, my girlfriend, or we go to the skating rink together. I wasn't allowed to have or go to slumber parties, but we supposed to be girls. We all go to the same church, these particular friends that I had. And so I just didn't understand why they were doing this. It was like really, really hard on me to really understand, so much to the point that I found, no lie, my friend had done something. We were in college at that time, or I was in college age, and I was in a Route 21, and I had heard something about my friend, and I was like, nah. And she was like, yeah, you know this girl named such and such? And I was like, yeah, I know her. She's my friend. Oh, well, she's this, or I didn't tell her she was my friend. I said, oh yeah, I know her. And she goes on and tells me all this stuff. And I was just like, not my friend.
Yeah.
And so I went to her about it, and she was like, and she confirmed. And I was like, what? First of all, you didn't even tell me this, but I had already established myself as the judgy friend. Like, you can't go to Alyssha and be like, girl, let me tell you what I did.
Yeah. You fast, you hot. This is what I heard. You hot as pepper. You lose. It could be you having just one partner, but all of these labels are placed upon you. And these labels are not placed upon the men that you are, interacting with, but somehow you are just out here. And you're right. It's like no one's going to the judgy self-righteous friend. It's so tricky because purity culture is such a gateway to pride and self-righteousness. Our executive pastor said this recently. He's like, pride cannot exist without comparison. And I understand, our leadership's motive, our parents, whomever was, guiding us. I understand their motive and intent. But when you're always comparing, right? Like, don't do this because look at them. Because it was the same thing for me, being sat down saying, hey, you saw your cousin, how she ended up. You saw, your friend, how they ended up from church or whatever. And it's like, it was like, the scarlet letter, right? You don't want to be that person. And if you remain,
so they're going to talk about you in church.
They're going to talk about you. And if you abstain, you'll be better than them. They didn't say that. That was not the terminology they used. But what they were saying to you ultimately is you're better because you're abstaining. You're better because you are not involving yourself in sexual activities. Even though you may be judgy, you may be prideful, you may be self-righteous, you may be mean. You may be a gossiper. You may be freaking untrustworthy and a liar. You may be, you know what I'm saying? Like, you may fight all the time. Right? It's like all these other things that do not reflect Christ's image, right? All these other things that are clearly un-Christ-like. Forget about all that. But you're better because you abstain from sex, period. And it's so trash because we grew up literally believing that we were better than other people. And that is just not true. It's so false. It's so false. And it makes it difficult when you're raised like that with that thinking. It makes it difficult to be truly self-aware and to see yourself properly so that you can be held accountable for all your stuff too, because all you're judging yourself upon is sexual activity, right? Well, I ain't did that.
So looking back and prior to getting married, I will say that background, I wasn't focused on boys. It could be because boys really weren't focused on me. I'm not like, I don't know, but it did allow me to focus on what I believe I needed to focus on. So like when I moved out here, Utah is just dry all around, right? The climate, the potential, all of that. Yeah. But it's like, if you're not focused, if I wasn't focused on this, so I was focused on like all the good stuff, right? So I put quotes around good stuff like education, follow purpose, and being somewhat, for the most part, a good person. But what I lacked and still learning is that grace factor. And it's that I think when I say that's one of the top three things of like the good girl status, that purity culture background definitely put me into not really having a lot of grace for people.
Yeah.
And so by turn becoming that judgmental friend. And it wasn't really like other stuff. It was really heavily on sexual activity because so many things can come from it. And I have a science background. So it's like, I understand how the body operates, like how it works when things are this and that. But when we go back to sensuality, my brain just like cuts off. So I'm just like that. I don't know how you teach someone about sensuality. And maybe that's something when we go back to, aside from my parents, youth groups. So like our youth pastors and our mentors and things like that, they're also not teaching us about this type of stuff in regards to like having a healthy relationship with your body.
Yeah.
Even
but why would they though? Like, why would they when their whole thing is, one, your body belongs to God, right? Your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. And two, your body belongs to your husband, right? Like, we've never been taught that our bodies belong to us. We've never been told that this is yours, right? We have so many of us are raised with zero agency over our own body. So we don't know what makes us happy, what pleases us, what feels good to us. None of that. It's all about what some other being needs and desires from us, from our own bodies, right? So of course we don't know what sensuality is. Of course we have not embraced our own sexuality because we've been told our bodies don't belong to us. How trash is that?
It's super trash. And that's when you learn stuff like that from friends. And it's just like, ooh, that's not always good. I should be able to go to my youth leader and be like, hey, this, that, and the third, whatever the comments are. I heard this from a friend. Can you further explain this? And I think and not just cut it off. Like, I didn't have a safe space with certain people, but I knew I could go to other folks, but they still didn't take it and be like, hey, let's watch a video. No, we didn't have YouTube, but there was the library. Or really
they were women though. They know how the body operates.
They were women.
Right. They have hormones. They ovulate. You know what I'm saying? So it's like this idea that you can just say, don't do that. All right. But what do I do when this is happening? When I have this emotion, when my hormones are this way, when I'm ovulating and my body is telling me it is time, like, what do I do then? Right. Because like the just don't do it thing just is not working.
I would almost have to think that they didn't know.
Yeah.
Or if they did know, they didn't know the technical terms. And
they
now I believe we have more, if you care about like Black gynecologists or just relationships with doctors, and we talk about mental health and all the other type of stuff. But I don't recall ever learning about the female body in church. And I think that's so important because if we're talking about we were created to do blah, 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 or be blah, 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 and he created all of us, why wouldn't you teach girls about their bodies in church in a safe space? This should be a safe space.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And
understanding
that takes me back
level.
to what my guest last week was saying, LaVon Briggs, was, pretty much like how, in a lot of ways, generally speaking, for Black Christian women, the church hasn't been a safe space. Mm-hmm. And that is the issue, right? The older women in our lives didn't teach us because the older women in their lives didn't teach them, right? Like no one was aware. We were all taught to just be, property or be servants, right? To our husbands, to our leaders, to our spiritual leaders, right? We're always giving of ourselves to somebody else, to some other man, whether that man is our pastor, our husband, or God, whatever, right? That we have nothing for ourselves. We don't know ourselves, none of it, which is why there's an orgasm gap. Like, y'all, this goes so deep. Purity culture goes so deep, but I don't want to sidetrack too bad. You've been sharing a bit about, how purity culture has informed the way you viewed your own humanity and things of that nature, and how you use it as a measure of righteousness. But how did purity culture inform the way you showed up in your friendships? I know you mentioned a bit about high school, but even like in the last couple of years, how have you come to know, oh snap, this was purity culture talking, or this was purity culture showing up in my relationships? Can you speak about that?
It wasn't until recently that I can honestly say purity, like actually put a title on it. Before it was, I remember talking about masturbation with a friend years ago in Utah. And we grew up similarly, but it was just like, I could talk to her because she grew up similarly, and we were like both virgins. We really didn't dibble and dabble and all of that. So we could talk about it, but I still upheld that judgmental friend to the point where I was just like, people just knew not to talk to me about this stuff because I'm like, so y'all just out here, huh? Okay.
Listen, out here,
we just having them, ain't we? Okay. And I'm just like, why? Allison, no. How? So y'all you just ruining your life, huh? You just want to ruin your life. Like that. I've become very direct. And so that wasn't like at the time, because Allison was there when I said it. She was like, they were like, wow. I was like, you don't think that hasn't stunted your growth? Having kids? Like, literally, I'm asking this question and they are just sitting here looking at me like I'm crazy. And I'm like, I didn't see anything wrong with the question.
Because logically speaking, you make sense, right? But when you start unlayering it, when you start peeling back the layers of the onion, you realize, oh snap, this is deeper than that. Because logically you say, okay, if you are sexually active and you are not married and you do not want children yet, then put on a condom, right? But when you are trained, so I'll give you a very personal example. When you are trained that sex is the ultimate sin, you cannot do this, you're going to be condemned, God will hate you, and you're going to have to work so hard to get back in his good graces. When you are taught that, it is so deeply ingrained that you try to do everything possible to stay so far away from it, right? So something as simple as, like for me, I was, throughout high school, college, whatever, post-college, I would be in, these committed relationships, right, with men who also were Christians. And they were aware, like, I'm not trying to get down like that. So I would not ever have condoms on me, ever. I'm not buying condoms because the purchase alone, me having the thought to say, deciding to go to a store to purchase condoms, for me, it was like, all right, I'm already agreeing to sin. I'm already coming into agreement with sin even before it happens. So I won't do that. So if I don't buy condoms, I have a list. I decrease my chance of falling in that way. Right. That was my logic. You couldn't tell me I didn't make sense. That was my logic. Right. Because I don't want to sin. I don't want to do anything that's gonna, displease the Lord. So when I get in situations with my boyfriend, right, who I'm in a committed relationship with, and then this happens again and again and again, I'm like, oh no, now I got to go drive around the city looking for Plan B pills, right? In college, broke. He is too. You know what I'm saying? And we over here trying to freaking
to the clinic.
And we over here trying to freaking, scrape up change, come up with $50 to go buy another Plan B. I'm pretty sure after the fourth or fifth one, my body is like, sis, no, just give up, just do something else.
And my logic to that is, on all college campuses, there are clinics.
I'm telling you.
And I was just like,
I'm telling you.
No, I get it. Because I've had my one instance of like, oh, I'm about to go to this area, but I don't even really know how to buy condoms. Like, what's the average? I don't know. Bruh. So I sent my male friend to the store. And like, I can't do it. You'll know better than me. You know him. So you go get them.
Yeah.
But
let me be clear real quick, because I don't want anyone thinking like, well, why was you dating dudes who didn't have condoms? I would make sure they didn't have them either. Because I wanted us to not, I was doing everything I could to make sure we were going to, abstain. I was trying, y'all. And it sounds so ridiculous saying it, but I would tell them like, y'all just don't bring condoms around me, bro, because like, we not doing it. And then we would end up doing it. You know what I'm saying? Like but that was my thinking. Like, I'm trying to do the right thing, not realizing that it would be smarter to just at least have some bases covered. Like, I know you're not trying to sin, but if you're going to do it anyways, I always say, if you're going to do it wrong, at least do wrong right. You know what I'm saying? Like, cover your bases. And that makes sense to me now. But then, I was so religious and I was in such bondage behind it, right? So yes, at least when you would say things like that in those conversations that we were both in, it made sense from the surface. But when you involve all the other factors and components, you realize this is much deeper than that. Yes, we have personal responsibility, but and I'm not saying we don't have to take any accountability over our actions. I'm just saying, like, here's the context, bro, because this stuff is just so deep, because that was the ultimate sin, the ultimate one. So yeah, child. Whew. I have to say this too. You said something earlier about, when you were in college and high school and exploring these relationships, you would get involved with guys who they probably weren't abstaining. So you're like, you know what? We can't do this. We probably shouldn't even be together. Were you like breaking up with dudes or like cutting them off because of this?
Yeah, it was mostly because of that. I was just like, that, and I was like, I don't see this actually working. Mm-hmm. So let's not even like play ourselves.
It's wild to me because.
And so, but okay. So then to that point, then you don't learn how to develop like relationally with another person, because that's also not really taught either. Like,
because it's not taught that men and women can have any sort of relationship outside of a sexual one. God forbid you want to just develop a friendship, a companionship, like, oh, Jesus Christ.
You do, and I don't want to say like I always had. There were a couple of people that would be like, just be careful. Don't, and it's like, don't put yourself in a space where anything can happen.
Which is why I didn't buy them condoms.
So you have to, it's just like, all right, well, I probably shouldn't be in the backseat of a car at night, but that happened. But it's like, I trusted this individual and everything was consensual. Like, we're trying things together. Still, I'll say this, after that occasion, I got in a car accident. It was pretty bad. Mm-hmm. And so it was maybe like a month later. I was like, ooh.
Did you blame the car? Oh, my Lord.
Did this have some type of correlation? It
Y'all,
was a thought. It was a thought. I don't know if I sat in that, but I definitely was like, that was a thought that passed. And I was just like, ooh,
this is so
this
wild
whole
because,
sex is a sin is terrible.
okay, so she said an accident, but she didn't give y'all detail. Y'all, they had to be life flighted from this accident. It was really bad. Like, she was with her best friend and they thought they lost each other. It was really, really bad. And we go around thinking that bad things happen to us, that God is somewhere waiting for us to mess up so he can punish us, bro. So that he can punish us. Bro, that is so like not okay. It's not aligned with the character of God, number one. And it's just like, I had to come to a point when I was, trying to figure out who I was, who God was to me, for me, all those things. I had to come to a point where I said, I don't want to serve a God who is like that. Like, I'd rather be a non-believer than serve a God who sits around waiting to punish me, And that's when I realized, oh, wait, that's what Jesus was for. Like, wait, that's on the cross. Like, not to, take advantage of that and have no personal accountability, because I do try to be holy, but like, I have no ability to be holy without Jesus, right? Like, that's the whole point. That's why I asked him to abide in me, because he the holy one, not me. You know what I'm saying? So all that fornication, all that whatever, that's on the cross, sis. Whatever it's called, premarital sex, whatever, it's on the cross. And as
whatever
Kevin,
y'all call it nowadays.
Listen, as Kevin on stage said, we have to make sure that we honor Jesus' sacrifice. If we don't sin, he died for nothing. So let me just bust it open a couple times to make the cross worth it.
That's it. Why?
But like, it's just so wild to me. So with you, breaking up with men because of this, I was doing the same thing, girl. And I recently told you this, and I'll admit it here. I recently had revelation, if you will, that the primary reason I'm single is because of me. I was privileged enough to have a conversation recently with an ex-boyfriend, one that we dated for a couple of years. And he pretty much confirmed what I thought, which was the way I ended things with him impacted him greatly. And I remember years later, after we broke up in college, years later, I was like, dang, why did I do that? Like, he was a good guy. He was the only man that I've ever been in a committed relationship with that did not break my heart. And he was the only man that I ever dated that was my exact type. So like, on paper, he was perfect. So I'm like, why did I end it? And when I realized, I was like, wait, was this over some like purity culture crap, on some like, well, I don't think he the man of God, because I'm like, wait a minute, this was dumb. So, and I had to sit with myself like, yo, I've pushed away really, really good, like solid men because of this idea that God, I had to please God with my mate. And therefore that partner had to be this like picture perfect image of who God wanted me to be with.
That part.
But here's the crazy part, Leash. The messaging we're sending is, oh, I am God's chosen worthy one, and you are not good enough. You are not adequate in God's eyes. I want to be with you, but God said I can't. How do you fight that? What sense does that even make, right? So now I've sent this inadvertently, unintentionally sent this message that the Creator does not find this person good enough for me. Who are me? Like, it's
the
so,
one.
Bruh, the good girl. Yeah, and I'm with a good dude who ain't done nothing wrong. I've done this more than one time, and it is so embarrassing to admit, but it's like, these are the damaging effects of purity culture, of being a good girl. It's like you do all these things that literally make no sense. I'll never forget, bro. When I did this the second time, I promise you, I've done this more than once. The second time I did this, I was like, I just don't know what the Lord is saying about this one. Let me just go pray about it.
Sounds so common.
Like, I mean, the Lord hasn't said no, but he hasn't said yes either. So, if it's not a yes, it's a no. So let me just go fast and pray. I did that like 2 or 3 times. By that third time, my boyfriend at the time felt so rejected. He was out. He was checked out. And I remember my best friend telling me, she kind of was just like, girl, it's not that deep. It's not that deep. And she helped me understand it. So when I went back to him, like, all right, boom, I'm back. I'm sorry. Like I was tripping. By the time I got it together, he was like checked out. He was like, nah, I'm good. He stuck around for a while, but he was checked out emotionally. He was gone. He took his heart back, packed it up, and was like, yeah, nah.
Like my suitcase is by the devil.
Child. But and it's like, it's so frustrating, y'all. So it's like, listen, if that's you, if a man love you, he doing right by you, and you got to pray about it. Nah, sis, get off your knees. Wait. Well.
Listen. Gosh, I think one of the biggest things for me was the unequally yoked thing. We got that a lot. That's we not equally yoked. He don't go to church. What does that even mean? Equally yoked. Like, oh, okay.
We're not equally yoked. But here's the thing, Alyssha. Here's the thing. That was my logic. Both of these men that I'm referring to were both Christian men. Both went to church with me. You know what I'm saying? Like, specifically, the guy in college, bruh, this man was a football player at an HBCU. You know, he could be out here getting anybody he wanted. You know where he was? He was with me at church. At church. We wasn't partying. He wasn't out here. And it's like, bruh. And I'm over here just like, I just don't know, you know. It's so dumb.
It was so deep. So deep and dumb.
Deep and dumb. Deep and dumb. And here I am, 31, like, Lord, why am I not married yet? Are you just hiding me? He's like, nigga, I done sent you a good 2, 3, 4, 5. It's you, sis. It's you.
Standing in the need of prayer. Okay.
Y'all, don't be like me. Don't be like me. Because it's like, looking back, it's so arrogant. How arrogant of us to feel that we are so righteous, so holy. That we can decide who is good and who's not. Yo, God is not pleased. Okay. Why do you think this movement was designed for and catered to just girls? Don't Christian men also need to be pure?
Yeah, I do believe they do need to be pure. We are, as young women, taught that the man is the head of the house, you know, almost in so many words, not to say that what he says goes, but like he has the final say. And he hears from God and he leads the family, right? So if he doesn't have clear vision or clear thoughts, pure thoughts, how is he supposed to lead a family? So yeah, in my opinion, if we're going to go with the whole logic of purity culture, yeah, men need to be taught the same thing. And like I mentioned earlier, I believe we were all in the same room.
Yeah.
At least at one of the non-denominational churches that I attended, we were all in the same room. But I don't know for sure what was the conversation with boys or young men specifically. But I know with us, it was just like you have to guard yourself and you have to do this and do that. And it's just like, I assume that they were getting the same message. Yeah. But what I was hearing in the community, in the young adult community, I was like, well, this don't add up. How did he end up with a baby? It just didn't make sense at all. But yet we still, and I'll be honest, this is where I'm struggling right now when it comes to men are being elevated, especially in like churches, to do these types of things, but they are trifling. No one is holding them accountable. And what does holding them accountable mean, right? How are we so quick to be elevated in spaces where men are traditionally supposed to be, I guess, quote unquote, supposed to be, and women have the hardest time. You haven't been called. I remember seeing my mom like go through it in church. My mom is bright, intelligent. She crazy, but because of the way she was in this male dominated space, to the point like one of my uncles said a woman can't be in the pulpit. I was just like, do we not remember Juanita Biden? Do we not remember? I remember women in the church like bringing the house down, but it was only a select few. Like they couldn't just be normal.
And when those same women, God forbid, had public issues, scandal, if you will.
Oh, they got to go.
Oh, they were canceled because Juanita Bynum went from the top to the bottom. Meanwhile, there are other men in these same spaces who have similar scandals who are not affected. And more so than that, oftentimes they even like are promoted or elevated after that, you know? So this idea that, you know, I don't know, purity culture is just, it's the double standard is so obvious, yet no one talks about it. I don't know. It's awful. Because the truth is, we're all trifling, right? Like we all need the grace of God, but just keep that same energy across genitalia, right? Like keep that same energy with all of us. That's all I'm saying. Like we all should be held accountable. We all should be striving, right? To be pure. And I say pure in the sense of like holiness, not just like, you know, sex and stuff.
Yeah.
Cause you know, I remember like when like girls would get pregnant in the church, they would have to like go up and literally apologize to the congregation. Meanwhile, the man is nowhere to be found.
On the drum set.
Or he's on the drums of the organ. Hello.
Like, wait, what? We never had that at any of the churches I had, but I remember it was not like this girl was, or the young ladies were, you could just see the shame they had to walk around with.
That is just not God. Like, I don't care how you slice it. It's just not.
I'm just curious. I would love to hear from a youth pastor that maybe upheld purity culture, and then looking back on it now, maybe having a difference of opinion and saying, what was my role? There was
actually a white minister. I'm not sure if he was. I think he was a youth minister. I want to say, you know, these pandemic years confuse me, but I want to say within the last 2 years, he came out and made a post pretty much apologizing. This was in reference particularly to their dress code. He was saying that in the summertime, they would go like summer camps and stuff. The girls couldn't wear bathing suits, not even one pieces. Or something about maybe that was the thing. It was like 1 piece versus 2 piece swimsuits. They couldn't wear 2 pieces. They had to be fully covered. He came back and apologized saying, you know what, it's not right that the men were able to go around with their shirts off and just their swim trunks, but the girls had to be fully covered. He apologized saying that wasn't right and that both girls and boys should be taught to respect each other, period.
So then it leads me to believe, are men teaching young boys about consent? Hello. How to treat a young lady? Hello. Like do friends really have that much influence on the behavior of a young man? Does rap music, not even rap, does any type of music, do all these other influences have that big of an influence where a young man can't stand up and be like, yo, for real? Yeah. You sat there and raped that girl?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then not go and tell an authority figure and say, yo, you need to get him. He is out here. How is that holy? How is that protecting your sister? How do you sit there and know?
Yeah.
But and not say anything.
But a lot of them don't know. And that's the crazy part, right? Because I have never met a woman who does not know another woman who has been sexually assaulted or abused in some sort of way. But you talk to a man, and so many of them are just like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know anyone who's done that. And I'm like, wait, I'm sure you do. It's just
in
not,
on your own team.
But think about it though. They're not going around the locker room like, hey, y'all, I took advantage of old girl last night. They're not saying that. They're saying something else.
But a man knows what a man is doing because you can read. It was a different world episode.
They don't be knowing that because they don't be knowing because think about it. Think about it. Mm-hmm. When you as a woman, right, or maybe you're the victim of that abuse, being taken advantage of, or whatever, there's so much shame on you. You probably ain't saying nothing, right? The guy's probably just going back and bragging, yeah, I got a girl or whatever, right? Because we have to also think about this too, Leash. Sexual assault and abuse, it goes so much deeper than like this violent experience we're taught that it is, right? That, you're in an alley somewhere or you're out a party.
No, manipulation.
It's manipulation. And sometimes it's someone I'm trying to say this without being so specific because I don't want to, this conversation isn't about that and I don't want this to go left. Mm-hmm. But there are ways for a man to believe you consented when you didn't. And technically that too is rape. You know what I'm saying? So in his mind, he was like, well, she didn't fight back. It's because she didn't think she could. Like what are you going to do? This is someone that you trusted, someone that you knew. And you get to a point of no return. It's just like, well, here we are, right? But it wasn't really consent. So a lot of times they don't know. And that is a more common experience than, the person being like, assaulted on the street from someone. You know what I'm saying? So, and because rape culture has been so embedded in our communities that so many men did not realize they were upholding that culture, participating in that culture, enabling that culture, right?
Looking at it now, I do have some type of just friction with the men that were in our different churches, and I'm curious of what was said to the point. I understand what you're saying. Like they didn't know, but these older men.
Oh yeah,
because older men, you've lived a little longer, and so it's just like you need to understand what consent is, and you think she's down with this, but you need to like really be honest, and then teaching our youth women, our people about like being honest and having the courage to say, no, this isn't what I want to do. Reading body language, to just be like, I understand what my body wants, but I'm seeing that her body doesn't. Maybe we should take some time, but then that means you don't get what you want.
Hello.
It's just like,
ding, 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 ding.
You gotta, what happened to caring for it?
That means you have to be
considerate.
That means you can't be selfish. That means that, someone else's needs are above your own. Someone else's desires are above your own. And that's not taught. And I get what you're saying. I just wanted to be clear. I don't ever want to paint a picture that, men are monsters, Christian men are monsters. I don't want to do that. So that's why I was saying that. But I feel you that there is a level of accountability that's just totally missing in our churches, in our community. And a lot of it's because they protect each other. They have this unspoken code, right? But they protect each other. I've heard so many stories over the years of like, well, we're not gonna talk about that. And it's like, well, why not? Because like Levon said last week, like our churches are full of women. The majority of our churches are full of women. Why are the needs of women not highlighted more, right? But again, you're talking about, people losing power, people losing control, people losing influence. Because remember, the Black church is where the Black man came into power for the first time, right? After being emasculated and demasculated, through years and centuries of oppression, racial oppression. So you get a Black man.
During.
You get a Black man, because a Black man is still a man, right? So you get a man and where he finally can come into a space and get into his rightful place, right? As king, as the leader. But then because of his own abuse that he experienced, he now takes this space and then abuses, right? Okay, back to more of the good child.
Yeah.
So recently I was coming across a post on Instagram and I was blown away because I didn't know that this was related, but there are apparently physical effects of being the good girl. I'm going to read off some, and I want you, let's just both test this theory. Let's see where we stand on this. The post is a visual, and it's a picture, an animated picture of a woman, and it just has a bunch of different effects of being a good girl. Where do you stand, Leash? Tense shoulders. Do you have tense shoulders on a regular basis?
Yeah.
Same. What about critical internal chatter?
Not as much now.
For me, absolutely. What about unexpressed opinions?
Yes.
Overlooked needs?
Not as much now.
Good for you. Stressed, overworked?
Yes. I'm realizing that certain things that were before, I was like, so now I'm realizing that I was stressed and I overworked myself.
Fatigue, built up resentment?
Yes.
Difficulty relaxing? I answer that for you. Mm-hmm. Yes. Nigga can't sit still.
I like to nap though. I am a napper, but once I'm up, I'm up.
Same for me though. It's difficult for me to relax. Anxiousness or nervousness?
Yes.
Pent up anger?
Sometimes, yes.
Digestive issues?
I don't know because I make sure I get my fiber in, and I stay on the regular. Let me tell you.
Okay, and the last one, holding your breath.
Yes, I didn't realize how much I needed breathing until actually I met Elijah, because he would breathe all the time. And I'm like, I remember one time I was like really just like, argh! And we were outside of my home, and he said, Alyssha, just stop and breathe. I was like, no, get out my face. I am breathing. Just very aggressive. Like these breathing exercises that folks be doing, it is life-saving for me and whoever else is in my path. If I'm being 100% honest, I mean, that isn't all the time, but it's definitely, I started to notice it. Like this breathing can really do wonders for you.
Well, y'all, if you have a majority of those effects in your physical body, it could be because you're a good girl and you are not living in a liberated way. So let's keep working on that, child, because I relate to pretty much all of this. Leash, now that you're married, you just mentioned Elijah. Now that you're married, do you believe being a good girl was worth it? If so, why?
Very much. It may be very unpopular, but I don't think so, because I had amazing mentors in church and out of church. My parents, I tell them constantly, you guys set me up for success. I believe I know I am who I am because of the parents that I had. But in the area of sexuality and sensuality, I believe majority of my community failed me and growing up. And when I became an adult and I needed to take ownership of things, of my actions and of words that I say, I definitely just relied on what I was taught. I didn't reteach myself. Or I didn't teach myself to understand what they said, if it was true or not. I just went off of what was taught. And so now that I'm married, a lot of the things, I remember asking a woman when I got engaged, after I got engaged, I don't know. I just remember saying, I don't know if this is just like, I don't know if it's just going to come on or not. Meaning like this sexual being, right?
Yeah.
She was like, no, you will. You'll know. You'll be fine. That's not what happened.
That's not how it works.
That's not how it works. That for some people, I know it happens. You see the posts, you see everyone has a blog or a vlog, a YouTube page or whatever. So I've watched the videos, but for me, that did not happen for me to the point now, like I get frustrated. I get frustrated because I'm like, I don't even know. How do you teach someone? How do you teach someone that?
Yeah.
The only thing I could come up with is you let them, I think starting with anatomy, having a healthy relationship with your body.
Yeah.
The whole grace thing.
Yeah.
Understanding, being that open person to, and I'm really like, I guess this is the inner little Alyssha talking to older people from the mind of an older Alyssha. So, I'll say this, I wish somebody taught me how to have a healthy relationship with my body so that when I can have fun naked and prior to Malaysia or now with her, I can dance naked, but the sensual side of that, it doesn't connect. I'm comfortable with the outer part of my body, but then you connect the sensuality. I just don't know how to respond.
Yeah.
And it's gotten better because I have a patient husband, but my husband was not a virgin when we got married. And he voiced it because we have a pretty open, communicative relationship. It was something that he waited with me, but he was very concerned about what this was going to look like when we got married. That is not to say, and I'm not telling people, oh, you need to get busy now because ain't nobody going to accept you when you get to that point. Because my boyfriend fiance, he waited.
Yeah.
And he said, and I told him from the door, this is who I am. This is how I live my life.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, okay. But he was very open. Like, I am concerned. Like, what is this going to mean? And his concerns were valid.
Yeah.
And to the point where it's just like, how do you even talk to somebody about this? So you seek out professional help to really, break down like what is my relationship, and you have to go back to little Alyssha and you break down, well, what is your relationship with sex? What is your relationship with sensuality? And that's why I can tell you, like, no one
why this is
said that this was a beautiful thing that could be shared with two consenting people that understood what they were doing. And I'm talking outside of marriage at this point. Understand what you're doing and understand that sex is and I have heard sex is a beautiful thing, in the confinements of marriage. And I'm like, okay, but how do we get to that? I want to get to that.
And that's the heartbreaking part for me, because when I think about, like, all right, you're the good girl, you check all the boxes, you go to school, you get a good job, you like do all the things, you focus on yourself, you focus on your self-development, you're not all tied up in, sexual relationships, right? Then you find the man of your dreams. And then you're also taught, now in marriage, you're also taught, all right, girl, you better give it to him. You better become, this freaking porn star in your bedroom, because if you're not giving it to him right, he gonna leave. So you go from, don't you ever do this, to this extreme shift on the opposite end of the spectrum, saying, all right, now you have to be all things to him. You have to meet every single desire, every fantasy, every whatever that he has sexually. And you're like, all right, but how though, Sway? How, Sway? And I could just imagine the shame that comes with, because it's like, but I did all the right things though. Like, should I not be rewarded now? And this is why purity culture is a scam. You don't win.
I guess the areas that you named, like, I'm successful in those areas, and I know I'm confident in myself and all these. I would say if that is the goal of purity culture, then yes, that I've won in that area. But when it comes to one of the most important areas when you get married, it is a very, I know, I'm not gonna say I lucked out. You always say Elijah was made for you, Alyssha. And I'm like,
oh no, for real.
I do
like
I do believe
yeah.
it's our story is interesting. I do believe how we met, like how it all transpired, how we got to this point in our lives. I would probably have to agree with, like, yeah, he was made for me for this time and all of that. But now it's just like I have to do these things for myself, because a simple question of like, what do you like?
Listen.
I don't know.
Listen.
It's like, okay. Or it's like, I am responsible for my own sexual well-being. I can't put that on him because he's not in my body. And so I am responsible for my pleasure. I am responsible because I have to at least tell him what I like or what I don't like. But when you don't know, it takes longer. It takes longer. And so, and even the mental side of it, having to formulate things, like I said, Elijah is patient, and it's not all bad.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's good. But when, your time of your alone time, there have been recent moments where I'm just like, why? Why? I want to be blah, 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 blah. And so I definitely, there was a not resentment, but an anger. And I don't even know if it was toward, I'm still, in it. Right. So I don't want to say it's an anger towards God, because I just don't want to put that on him. However, I'm just like, why do people do these things to people, to young folks? And then you grow up, and I'm not living a full life that in that area, that I'm not living fully. And so everything else it could be going well. But they also, like you said, they tell you sex is a big part of your marriage.
Yeah.
It's a huge part. But no one let me explore the minimal things. You only be kissing nobody. Kissing leads to hands, and hands leads to, and I'm just like, kissing.
Listen.
Let's. And so I knew how far to go. Like, I knew how far my body would take, to the point. Like, my body would just stop at a certain point. It's just like, before I got married, it just, and so now you're saying go full force.
Right. Like, yeah. Full throttle now.
Turn
all right, body.
on.
Right. All right, body. Let's go. It's time.
Okay.
Your body's just like, wait, no. We've not done this. It's been 30 plus years since we shut down.
The mental side of
that's wild.
Transforming your mind.
Yeah.
You have to transform. And again, not everybody's like this. And I don't expect people, don't feel sorry for me or for anyone that may be experiencing this. I will say to women who may be in this case, or even men, maybe in similar cases, it's like, take your body back and start to really
powerful.
talk to God about, how can I be one with my body? You gave me this body. As a woman, regardless if you want kids or not, we can hold children. We can, we produce life and the milk to feed a child. So I don't think that would, like, if we decided to have kids, like, I don't think that would be so much of a big deal, but it might, if I don't take my body back and be like, my body is a beautiful thing in whatever state it's in. The pandemic definitely did a toll on things where I was just like, what is going on in regards to weight gain or weird things? And now I'm in my 30s. And so, like, all of this is happening at once. And I'm like, I got to take the ownership of my body back and really get to know through time, like, what can my body do? And what do I want it to do? Who do I need to go to teach me how to do these things? So if it's a pole dancing class, if it's something where, shoot, I used to, prior to meeting Melanja, I went to nude beaches. That was a part of me trying to become one with my body, being okay with my body being outside. And I didn't think it was a problem. Everybody else was somewhat nude, or if not nude. And I felt it was so freeing. Now, I don't know. Yeah, it was just freeing. And it wasn't in a sexual way. You know, it wasn't like I wasn't sitting there with people. I went with my friends. One of my friends for my birthday. That was like my 26th birthday. I wanted to do that. And that was kind of like year 26 was my year of kind of like tiptoeing into doing more, just with learning myself. But now I'm in a different space now with another person.
Right.
And learning a different function of my body.
Yeah.
So though I know more about my body, like now I'm like, well, let's talk about this here orgasm. Because it's like, well, how do you know when you have an orgasm? How do you know this? How do you? Yeah. And it's just like, I be in the GYN office like, and this is happening. What's going on with this? What's going on? And I have the language because of my science background, but I have I got to know this.
Yeah. Because
if I don't know this, I can't tell my partner. I can't. I can't. If I'm trying to do something to learn about my body, whether that's masturbation or, I'm trying to learn to tell him to enjoy it myself. And so it's just like,
I love that you said that, because it's like, it can be so foreign to Christian women that pleasure is for us also, that there should be
I want that so bad.
Yeah, like two people should be enjoying this moment. It's not just for him. Like, you're not just a piece of meat being no, get yours too, sis. In marriage, because I'm still, marinating on the whole premarital sex being sin,
Mm-hmm.
Even though I have partaken, but I repented though, so I'm good. I'm going to heaven.
Y'all need to see her face. What LaVon say last week? Let me tell you something.
LaVon ministered to me. Like, listen,
please,
I can get
put that in your favorites. Put that in your favorites. Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Leash, for your transparency, sharing your lived experiences and all the things related to purity culture. And I'm happy that you have a partner who is patient and is enjoying exploring with you and figuring things out. And I think that the beauty in that is that, you have your whole life to explore, and things will go from glory to glory, from faith to faith.
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
I'm loving that, like, one glory. Okay, that's one glory.
Yes.
Riding. Okay. We got another glory over here.
Not glory riding. Come on and glory ride. Come on and glory ride.
Like, we're going to try all these things.
Come on and glory ride. That is hilarious.
I want to say, I know you have male listeners. Men, for women, my husband did not grow up in the church. And so he just has this patience because he has a great mother and a great father. Mostly his mom taught him about, he was patient with his mom and patience and all this other type of stuff. So I think if you really love a woman or your partner, understand when y'all get married, she may talk it up. It may be something that you both are looking forward to. But if it doesn't happen within the first month, 3 months, 6 months, year, you got to be patient with her and understand. And that's why during the dating phase, it's like, what was your history with sex? Like, what is your understanding of sex? It's very important, even if you're not having it.
Yeah.
Understanding what it is, like what the other person, and this could be for women as well, or, both sexes. Understanding each other's understanding of sex, especially if you were brought up in the church, because how it comes out in your relationship is going to be so interesting. And if you're looking to be married to that person, again, you could talk it up, but then once you get to that point, it could definitely be hard to transition mentally to, okay, this is a good thing. And I'm not saying, again, all the time, but it can be, well, should we really be doing? You want to try this? I don't think that's holy. Girl, buy the edibles. On my list.
Listen. If honoring your spouse is worship to God, then that has to be worship too. Okay, so enjoy your worship, sis.
I'm a free worshiper. That is.
Come on.
Listen, if y'all see things in my posts on the gram, just say, you know what? Glory. What is it? Levels, free worshiper, and levels and levels and levels upon different types of glories. Okay, I'm just trying to get there.
I love that. Well, thank you, girl.
Thank you.
I hope that somebody was helped. I really do, y'all, because I just don't want y'all like being like, like it's really good, solid men out here that we just be like trashing because of this purity culture crap. And not just that, it's so many things like we've discussed in this episode. So I really hope that this helps you to unpack some things in your own life, to assess your own, behaviors and beliefs and thoughts surrounding these things. Like, because purity culture has not helped us at all. It just really hasn't. It has not. So let's heal. Let's heal from our religious baggage, religious bondage, religious trauma. Let's heal from it. I think that our communities will really be healed if we commit to this work. Well, let's get to Brownie Points. This is the segment where we give ourselves kudos for something that we have recently accomplished, whether it's big or small. We oftentimes think, we can only share things if they are what we deem as noteworthy or are victorious. But sometimes organizing your shoes is the most victorious thing you'll do today. And that is worthy of celebration as well. So, Alyssha, what are you giving yourself brownie points for today?
Naps. I have been giving myself permission to nap more. At work, napping for 15 minutes. I don't care.
Nap at work.
Listen, I have a towel at my job. I have a door as well. And I have lights. And I take my 15 minutes. I lay my towel down and I get me a 15-minute nap.
I love that.
And it is so rejuvenating.
There is a theme happening like this season. So many of my guests have had similar brownie points. And I love that so much because rest is not a luxury. It is a necessity. That is really, really good. I love that. Yes, Leash, kudos to you.
Put that timer on because I won't wake up. Put the timer on.
That's why naps be messing me up because listen, I take a nap. I'm like, this should be permanent, right? Let's just go back. 15 minutes. No, how about an hour? How about 3?
All right.
I'm giving myself brownie points for finally finishing updating my resume. Good Lord, it's like a whole job just updating that. Good Jesus. I reformatted it in a way that I found based on this TikTok guy who helps folks. I'm like, okay, well, this seems to be working for folks. Let me try this format. And it took me so long to update it because, anyways, I'm proud that I finally finished it. My deadline to finish it was May 1st. And last night I was like, crap, May 1st is tomorrow and I have not finished this. I got a few more things to do. So I finally finished it. And now I can really get on my grind and start looking for something else because this job I'm on is trash and I'm done. I can't do no more. Oh, no. This ain't it. This
0 stars.
Do not recommend.
Oh, geez.
All right, y'all. Give yourself brownie points. I hope you sit with yourself for a moment, reflect, and celebrate yourself. Regardless of who knows, a victory is a victory. Alyssha, share with us how we can support you, what you got going on. Tell us about Curly Me. What's going on? Where can we find you?
So I am on Instagram, the Instagrams, at A_DAIR. That is my Adair's, because I'm very creative in that. And I run a nonprofit called Curly Me, as Allison said, and that is Curly Me SLC. Curly Me is my baby. It was created in Utah based off of my childhood experiences and life. And I'm just so grateful that in a place that I never would have thought purpose, I would have found purpose. I found purpose. And so Curly Me SLC or curlyme.org on, if you Google us or put it in a web browser, is where you can find us and support us. We are a nonprofit 501c3, so support means a lot, whether it's a follow or cash. I mean, grant writing is always a necessary thing. So
follows or cash.
Girl. I mean, yes, we doing things for the babies out here.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for all you're doing. I think that the work you do is incredibly impactful. It will outlive you, sis. Your impact for sure. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
That is legacy. All right, y'all. Well, if you'd like to follow me, you can follow me on social media on Instagram and Facebook at Shades Brown, on TikTok at Mother Wound Healer. And I'm also on YouTube. It's actually just under my name, Allison Brown. But if you just type in on YouTube, Shades of Brown podcast, the episodes will come up and you'll be able to find my page and subscribe. I would love for you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you for your support. And please share this episode, put it in your group chat, discuss it, have, discussions about it. I love when Alyssha texts me after she listens to an episode and has a whole breakdown on the episode. And I always want to share her stuff, but some of the things that she says are just okay, I can't actually post that one.
You should. You said I could speak how I would speak, so I did.
Yes. My podcast, Lord, is turning PG-13 these days, Lord Jesus.
Oh, God.
Oh, Lord. And feel free to buy some merch. Yes, we have t-shirts and mugs and all kinds of goodies. Check it out at everythingalyb.myspreadshop.com, or you can just check the link in my bio on my social media accounts. Thank you for your support. And also, if you're thinking about starting a podcast, let me know. I would love to help you get it launched. Follow me, follow Leash, and thank you so much, sis. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
And I'll leave y'all with this. I hope that you be well, love well, and be loved well. You deserve that. Till next week. Bye.